You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So visit FanDuel.com today to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And today, we're venturing a little bit off the beaten path because I want to get to a question that is really interesting to me, and I'm sure plenty of those college sports and or Red Raider sickos and the audience. And it was actually spurred on by one of those types, and I don't think you'll mind me describing him as such, one of our Matador Mobsters, and a text that was submitted relating to Texas Tech fitting into the future, whatever that actually looks like when it comes to college football or college sports. And I think this will tie into some things that you've alluded to as well, whenever it comes down to, a roster push or a facilities push. The gist being you're trying to put your best foot forward for whatever change is still yet to come. I know you've made reference to that on multiple occasions. So I want to get into with you today some of the motivation on that front that's existing for Texas Tech, sort of isolated, and then some of that motivation that obviously has been spurred on by the circumstances that have developed over the last handful of years or so. I want to get to what actually is a priority beyond just new buildings, if there is such. But I'll kick off our conversation with this question I'll share with the audience as well from Jackson, again, in the Matador Mob, whose original text, and we went through a few iterations of deep thoughts and, of course, answers to all of these problems. Chris, I won't bore you with all of that, but the original text from Jackson said, I've been hearing for a long time about Tech investing in new facilities to put their best foot forward for the next round of change or realignment. Is this something that's actually voiced from other leagues, league leadership, friends in the know, or is it more undefined but still kind of very real? So what it extends to, we'll get to in just a moment. But, Chris, I know this is discussed in dark corners of the web where Red Raiders go to commiserate, maybe RedRaidersports.com or elsewhere, that there has been some type of, I don't know, do I call it direction or a checklist, a criteria laid out in a way? Is it fact? Is it fiction? Can you separate some of that for us?
I think that was more true way back in the 2010-11 timeframe than it is now. I don't think there was ever some mandate like you got to have this, this, and this, or you're not making the cut. I think that in terms of facilities and best foot forward, I think that you wanted to have stuff that would last, stuff that was impressive, stuff that is modern and updated and finished, as opposed to, man, we got a really nice stadium, but at some point down the line, we'll be able to do this to it, and then we'll really be able to complete it. Those kinds of thoughts. But I at this point right now, you've checked every box that anybody would have ever wanted you to on any sort of facilities thing. Okay, so that. But why do you want good facilities? What makes that important? Well, it helps you. This is like one hand scratching the other, because what it turns into is you can have the nicest stuff in the country, but if you're terrible and your product sucks and nobody cares about the on the field product that you're putting out there, it doesn't matter what you're operating out of, or what you're playing in, or how many premium seats you have, or practice that you've got, or whatever. I think you thought you would need one, and then that would help you with the other, because the other is what we can get into here. Is you've got to win and win big, and do so consistently. I think based on the way the rules may start to change, and we'll see. We keep waiting. It could put much more of an emphasis back onto facilities, everyday life, where you're hanging, to the high school player, to the portal player too. If hey, the money's kind of the same, where do I see myself? Where do I want to set up shop every day? What can help me maximize myself as a player? And Texas Tech has, I mean, if you go watch some of the stuff that's out there on your new football facility, it's so much about, yes, it's nice. Yes, it's very easy on the eyes. It's very spacious, but it really comes down to therapy, recovery, nutrition, some of these portions of things that people don't really consider. We just think about weight room. It's what it used to be. And then the field. And then all the other stuff. Yeah, we'll just put that in there. Well, they've really tried to, I mean, from cryotherapy to these sleeping pods to, nutrition and it being fully, I mean, it's just some of these kids are going to eat and have more help in some of the recovery, whether it be injury or just everyday life. Because you'll hear in some of these videos that are out there, it's like sleeping or cryotherapy, whatever. It's basically like we are able to maximize your time in that normally you got to be in the cold pool for 30 minutes. But if you get in this cryotherapy chamber, you just got to be in here 2 or 3 minutes. And so now I've got 27 minutes, left to go do what I want to, or there's all those kinds of things. So I say all that to offer up that really you're able to sell. We can help you be the best version of yourself. And if we coach you correctly and you buy in and you use these tools, then you will be a better player. And that I'm just talking about the football scenario because that's what most of this revolves around. But from a facility standpoint, but because you've spent as much money as you've spent on this building and all the bells and whistles that it's got, it guarantees you nothing going forward. It must create, though, a better product. That's what you're hoping. And you're hoping, too, that this is something that to some of the people that gave this money to help build it, they wanted it to be here in 2050 and it still be very functional and operational and state of the art and all the things. So they were thinking long term and big picture, not just, hey, let's just, because I remember how many years ago was it where you spent, I think Cliff was the coach, and you spent like $1 million or something on the locker room, and that was a big deal at the time. But and you ended up tearing it down. But it was kind of a Band-Aid, at times. But at the time, it was a big deal. We just didn't know what was on the horizon. So we'll get into what really matters here in a bit. But from a facility standpoint, there's no mandate out there. You're just trying to have nice stuff, updated stuff, finished stuff, and that's impressive and that's full all the time from a stadium standpoint, but it's really what happens on the field that ultimately matters.
Yeah, during the Cliff era, I think we all understood there were much bigger needs still there, but we understood also how important it was to get some neon lighting and some mood lighting for a locker room. Apparently, I don't know, that's what sold at that point in time, but it's a whole different ball game now. And I do want to shout out another Matador mobster, our guy Emmett, who was pointing me towards what I think is actually some brand new video from the football training facility on Sports Dissected's media channel. And I think it's going to be a multiple episode thing. So I was taking this in just a couple of days ago, 15 or 20 minutes worth in an episode. And yeah, you were kind of talking about some of that maximizing time. And there's a point at which they're looking at napping pods of some kind. And Coach McGuire, who is featured in the video, is talking about we can give you, I think, 2 hours of rest in 30 minutes or whatever he said, because the sleep quality is so good. And we're talking REM sleep and all other kinds of things that I don't really understand. But nonetheless, they do, Chris. Now, I will say as well, something I want to point out from the video before we move on. For those who are thinking, boy, this is newfangled. How fancy are we? Is this going to make us a little less tough, a little less angry, a little less nasty? I did see, as they were touring this state-of-the-art weight room, a 8x10, what I assume was an 8x10 sheet of printer paper, scotch taped to one of the racks that did say, first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on all the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to really win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. For those who are thinking, boy, this is newfangled. How fancy are we? Is this going to make us a little less tough, a little less angry, a little less nasty? I did see as they were touring this state-of-the-art weight room, a 8x10, what I assume was an 8x10 sheet of printer paper, scotch taped to one of the racks that did say, "You will pass out before you die," which is a little old school flavor added to the weight room. In case anybody's wondered about it getting a little too comfortable, I just wanted to point that out. But I would check out that video. Again, the YouTube channel is Sports Dissected. It's an awesome video, and it's featuring, and I mean, clearly an awesome facility and maybe the best running in the country, certainly the biggest contiguous facility on the face of the earth. But Chris, I'm curious to kind of expand upon what we're talking about here a little bit. You know, get into some of the references that you've made on previous episodes about putting that best foot forward, or what you're actually trying to do for this next round of changes. I mean, you mentioned just a minute ago, it's not just about new buildings or shiny things. It can also be about, or is about, winning big. And as I go back to the last decade and a half, I think there were a lot of portions of that where I thought the on the field or on the court, mostly on the field results, got a little overblown by fans sometimes, because I thought, well, this program has these television ratings, or you've got this fan base or alumni base of support. You're in these television markets, whatever it might be. And that might not always coincide with great, at that time, on-field success. So do you think that maybe I've been underestimating the winning percentage factor, or has it kind of evolved over time to become a bigger deal? What do you think?
You know, as you toss some of this stuff up here, and we're talking about like what scenario would it look like where you would check enough boxes to where you're still, you know, invited to the party if there is a split in 3 to 5 years, and there is hey, we're going to cap this thing. We're going to bring 40 programs along, and then everybody else will be playing a different sport. However you want to get, whatever theory you want to buy into, or whatever. The ones that will come along, and like, we'll just talk about Big 12 programs, okay, right now, because I don't know if every Big 12 program would be a part of a come along process in the future, if that's what it came down to, or would get an invite to a different league. Okay. It really comes down to, though, like, do you matter? Is there a care factor? Like, because you can get into like the blue blood conversation. What makes a blue blood? I mean, yeah, there's tradition, there's a lot of winning, but it doesn't matter like who's coaching them or who's playing for them. And because there's some lightning in a bottle that you can catch. I think you could argue Colorado has got some of that right now, but that's only because of Deion Sanders. If Deion's not the coach there, don't we all mostly think that they're not on Big Noon Kickoff anymore? They're kind of go back to where they were. The Colorado fan may not want to hear that, but that's just, that would be my take there. And I'm talking about in terms of these conversations, because when Deion's the coach, they people care for different reasons. They matter for different reasons.
Otherwise, you see a Texas or Alabama helmet and you're turning it on anyway. You probably don't care who's under the headset. Right. Whatever.
So you mentioned TV ratings a second ago, and then that's a difficult game to try to play. But that's where you find out if you matter or not. If people tune in to either watch you win, watch you lose, but they care. That may be the biggest thing that you need in terms of what moves the needle if there is another shakeup. Which teams matter? I think that, like for example, I saw a national podcast host. They did an episode with Joey McGuire recently. And I think that there was like, I don't know, 20,000 people that watched it or something. They did one with Ohio State's head coach, Ryan Day. There was like 220,000 people that watched it. That's kind of what I'm talking about. It's not anything about Ryan Day or Joey McGuire as much as where they work and who they represent and what they're talking about. And you just have to create, because I think the buzz that you've created recently is not a bad thing. And whether it bothers you, whether you like it, whether you are embracing it, whether you're trying to shy away from it, whatever. I think that is a buzz that could spill over into just some morbid curiosity about your program this fall.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
And I think that at some point there's plenty of people wishing that you succeed, wishing that you fail, just curious as to what you're going to do, whatever. But this is are we still doing? Have you still got this buzz going 3 years from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? That's really, and yes, your market matters, your alumni base matters, but it all funnels into what you're worth and how much you matter based on how many people care about you, or in some cases don't care. Like that's why we were talking about, some of these old Pac-12 schools. Like, you played them in a bowl game a couple years ago, but there's not a machine that could be built big enough to measure my indifference on like Cal football. I don't care.
It's yours. Just mention a Cal fan. I mean, that's what, for the most part, preserved a gooey middle of the Big 12 as a league, and didn't for the Pac-12, as the care factor was much higher among those middle tier or non-blue blood. I think there are blue bloods that are insulated from winning or losing. Hey, if Texas sucks, I'm going to turn it on because I can't wait to see them get blown out. If Texas is great and you're a fan that likes that, you're turning it on because you love to see that. They're kind of insulated. And we've experienced this for ourselves. You talk about lightning in a bottle. You had a care factor, you had a personality in Mike Leach, and you did have some growing success all coinciding. And that was leading to, well, what you need it to lead to. Unfortunately, in the decade of suck, you didn't have those things coinciding, except I think your care factor actually has just continued to grow and grow and grow and grow, because we do have to remember, as a program, fan base, alumni base, whatever, relative to some others, you are in a youthful stage. But that winning, man, that's what we're actually all funneling back to. You mentioned back to the care factor. We're actually funneling back to dubs, and no, that's have the buzz in 3 years without those.
That's ultimately what all these, like, I think Joey has done a phenomenal job when he took this thing over. This was a fan base that needed to be re-energized. They needed belief, and you've got a guy that believes more than anybody else on the face of the planet.
I think literally that is true. That is an accurate description.
And I think he breathes life into everybody he's around all the time, whether it be in May or in September, on a Tuesday or a Saturday afternoon. That's just the way he's wired. I think he's a perfect fit for college football in like 2025, with a lot of moving parts and having to adapt and try to thrive and all the different things. And I think he's, if your biggest concern is culture and can you get guys to buy in quickly, I think he's perfect for that. And we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, man, ultimately you have to win, and you have to win consistently. And at some point you have to win big. That's what ultimately gets you invited to me at the next. Yeah. Yes, all these other things help lay the groundwork for that. Do we have the right people in place? Do we have the right buildings in place? Do we have the right people that can maximize talent and develop and all the things? Because a sleep pod or a cryotherapy chamber isn't getting you invited to the have party if that's the way it plays out in time. But you would hope that it helps you win games, which ultimately that may, because winning people will care if you win and win big, and they'll start to hop on. I mean, it's the Doug Flutie effect, right? It's like that's what they call it whenever, Flutie did it, he threw the pass and they beat Miami way back in the 80s. And then enrollment at Boston College kind of started going up. And then there's been various examples of that over the last, 20, 30 years or whatever. But it just comes down to winning it. And you're going to have to, championships, whatever that looks like, has got to try to be a part of this. I don't think you sit back, back in December and say, let's try to spend as much money as we can. Let's try to piss everybody off. Let's try to go do that. I don't think you were wild. I think you were like, let's put our best foot forward with the rules that are currently in place, and try to put the best team we can on the field right now. And they did that. And I think that they will try to do that again with whatever rules are in place. And you just keep swinging away at it. But you're trying to create some interest. You're trying to create, the brand. But it has to be about winning and winning big at some point. And people may have different, my version of winning big may be different than somebody else's. Because it's very difficult in this sport of football to crack the code. I mean, you can go look at the last 50 years. There's really 10 to 12 teams that are consistently there all the time, or programs. And there's some exceptions here and there, but they have a hard time cracking the code and staying there. But you're just trying to, again, swing away at it and see if you can't make some noise there. But you've got to do it consistently too.
Yeah. To me, winning big is contending for a conference title first. And that's, kind of being in the top 2 or 3 probably of your league, top 4 year in and year out, and then seeing if you could do something interesting on the national stage. And you got to beat great teams, obviously, to be in those spots. And those are the wins that get the kind of attention that we're referencing that you were building toward and got a small taste of toward the latter stage of the Mike Leach era. And that's what I feel like has been just so character building. And I'm definitely grateful for this character building experience over the last decade as a Red Raider, Chris, in that you were ascending this mountain, so to speak. Let's expand a footprint. Let's have a bigger stadium. Let's do all these things. And then it's a decade in the desert of wandering around in robes and sandals. But at the same time, I really do feel like you continued to expand as far as Red Raiders are concerned. The care factor. I mean, you've had great crowds in and out of that stadium through all of those years where there was plenty of irrelevant football being played. You've had great support. And now you're back to something that seems a little more energized competitively as well, which started with, again, we'll talk about big wins or care factor, beating opponents your fans care about beating. Joey McGuire, round 1, we're talking wins over OU and Texas in the same season for the first time in the history of first times. So care factor increases with things like that. And that is something I mentioned it before on this show. I think makes the job a little bit more difficult, say, for a Texas Tech coach now as compared to other eras. Makes the job a little bit more difficult, say, for a Texas Tech coach now as compared to other eras. You've lost 2 huge bonus point care factor opportunities on your schedule that previous coaches had, with no Aggies, no Longhorns in the mix anymore. So I think you have to you've got to overachieve in a way to still drum up that kind of energy or electricity in your present set of circumstances. If you're paying attention, we obviously continue to change.
It's such a great point, and that's why this is the reality that we are now in. And I think that I don't know if anybody took it for granted over the several years. It was just part of your existence. But I mean, you don't have a protected rivalry in this current league that you're in. Meaning there's not just some game and opponent that everybody needs to stop what they're doing and like, okay, this game is going to be played. And it's going to be a big deal to all involved, and that really doesn't exist for you. I mean, you're not even, Baylor and TCU aren't even on your schedule. They took Oklahoma State off your schedule, a year ago, whatever it was. And
forget rival. We can't even get a neighbor, anybody in the neighborhood to hang around.
And that's a problem for you. That's a problem for you. And you, till we're blue in the face, you can say, man, it'd be nice to play home and home with A&M or Texas or Oklahoma. They're not going to do that. There's not, you would have all the interest in the world to want to set that up. There's nothing from those institutions to gain from it. And I just don't think that would be on the table in any form or fashion.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the care factor here, because play this exercise out. Say you have, let's just not even include Texas Tech. You're the general college football fan sitting at home on a Saturday afternoon. You're the Tech fan and all that, but Iowa State and Kansas State, which they're going to play in Dublin here on August the 23rd, I think, this year. But say it's a November the 10th, and they're playing a game at 2:30 on a Saturday, and they're both ranked in the top 10 or top 15. And then on another channel, Alabama is playing Georgia, or Alabama's playing LSU, and they're both in the top 10 or 15. The general normal fan, we know how this would go. And the football, the coaching could be worlds better in the Big 12 game, but it just doesn't generate the interest. And I guarantee you the stands would be full, but you're probably going to go the other channel and see more draft picks, more national storyline. And again, we can blame ESPN for that or just the SEC propaganda, whatever. But that's how most people are going to sway. And this is the code you're trying to crack is like, what can we do to really push our way into some of this conversation or to where you matter or there's a care factor there. And it just winning big has got to be a part of it. That's the only really way you can do it, unless you have some crazy personality as your head coach that is a polarizing figure of somebody like Deion Sanders. But even then, some would say, yeah, well, as soon as he's gone, so does all that care factor and all that.
It'll travel with him elsewhere.
Probably.
And if they don't have a built-in care factor, they'll have one all of a sudden the day that he arrives. Before we get out of here, Chris, so you're just telling me there's not any checklist coming on SEC letterhead from Atlanta, Georgia. I just want to go ahead and make that clear for all the conversations we can have on the internet and whatnot. That hasn't been something outlined, but maybe there is some general sense of what you're.
I would not. I would say this. I would not ever rule out you getting an invite down the road from a league like the SEC. I'm not saying that happens or will happen. I don't think anybody knows what really will happen. Some would say, oh, that's far-fetched. No way. You just don't know. I think you would be one of very few programs that would get a realistic look because of some things that you've built and that you've done and where you're located and all the stuff. Maybe your government in the state of Texas would help in some of these scenarios. I don't know, because we've seen and heard all of it. And but I wouldn't. I don't think you would ever be in line for like a Big Ten. But maybe it all looks different in 3 to 5 years, anyways. I think Brett Yormark's task is to try to keep the Big 12 together and let it flourish. But I think BYU is a program that would check some boxes because of all the things that we've just sat here and talked about. Now they've been winning. Can they do it consistently? But there's a care factor there. They've got a national because of their faith-based, just everything that goes with BYU. So anyway.
Yeah, when your soul's eternal destination is tied into your care factor, that seems like an advantage for some of these football teams. I don't know.
Yes.
Before we get out of here, Chris, I'm just really I've got existing motivation there on the screen. It's because I rattle around in this empty noggin of mine, plenty of space to rattle around. The thought of what this would look like if maybe the circumstances had advanced differently. I really feel like some of the news that we've seen break here or there as it relates to conference changes has spurred some of this on in the form of additional motivation. But I don't know, maybe the timing was always going to kind of line up where you had some well-resourced and well-motivated individuals coming into positions to be able to do things like this. What do you think? Have we had a little fuel added to the fire given some recent events?
As in, have you been given motivation to try to
do you think that this would have been a trajectory for Texas Tech regardless, or there was
I think there's some motivation. Yes, I do. I do think that there are people very highly placed that are directly involved that have an inkling that there is another shakeup coming. And I think that you go back to, spin the wheel on which theory or which way you think this is going to go.
Right.
But I do think in the next round of the media right conversation that we'll get into, which everybody's kind of up around the same time frame, and some of this stuff starts to happen, and the groundwork is laid well before those rights deals actually expire. I think that this is why I've tried to say, when you talk about your portal class, it's not just spending money; it's motivated money. And I mean, you're trying to win, and the reason you're trying to win is you're trying to elevate your status in many ways. And I think that, because again, it goes back to the city of Lubbock. It goes back to the entire institution. Anybody out there with a degree here, You can talk about value if you're here, or value if you're there. And if you start playing New Mexico State every week here, and maybe you get a game with North Texas, and that's a conference game. That's a worst case scenario, but you get what I'm saying.
Sure.
It is absolutely it is motivated, and I don't think anybody has had a conversation with somebody going, you guys need to do this or else. It's just more of people being able to read the room, very smart and wealthy people with Texas Tech's best interest in mind, and they know football and basketball is ultimately all that really, really moves the needle in this kind of conversation. Again, care factor.
Yeah.
Revenue. Yes.
We're all economically caring about the future of Texas Tech athletics. Throw podcast hosts on that list as well. It's fun to think about the future because there is so much exciting groundwork being laid as we speak. So I'll look forward to revisiting this again in the future. Chris, appreciate your time as always. Enjoyed this go round, and we'll see you for the next one.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it. Anybody else has any other things that like we said yesterday, man? Yeah, these are fun conversations to have, because I think some people, and this is my read of things based on my information and who I talk to and all that stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of conversation to be had about there, because there's a lot of confusion on what will not be off into the distance. So anyway, keep hope alive, everybody. We'll talk to everybody next time.
I was scanning the mob for thoughts, and it was this or Micah Hudson's relationship with the paranormal. Getting back to that, I chose this for today's episode, but maybe we circle back to the other option on an upcoming episode. So that's why you want to get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts, so you miss nothing and you stay in the know. Appreciate you guys for being out there. Thanks to the everydayers for always riding along. Thanks to the Matador Mob as well for the interaction. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial there. If you're interested in joining that crew, that's your direct line to Chris and myself, with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone on a variety of subjects. Clearly, for Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.